I hope that old man got the tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip. Okay, hit it!
Hey everybody, how's it going? Tonight we have a special collector spotlight, something we don't normally do. We're going to be doing some vintage, and you know, a lot of us like vintage, and we don't talk about it on this channel very much. But
it's where a lot of us started out. That was the vintage is what planted the seed, right?
Started out, Jason. Yeah, I mean, yeah, almost everybody, was started out playing with vintage, and that's all you did back then was play with your toys. So tonight we have Robin Bocra, who most people who are in vintage have seen her or seen her collection. And, basically we're going to go through her collection tonight and check out all the cool stuff and talk about a lot of pieces. And let's start with Robin. How are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. Thanks so much, Jason, for having me on the show. This is a lot of fun. So thank you.
Happy to have you.
My name is Robin Bocra, and I am a physician here in New Jersey, and I have been collecting since the 70s. I'm an original fan of the films. I saw them in a first-run theater back in May of '77 with my mom and dad. And my mother was a very big, and she still is a huge science fiction fan. And so being around her, it was just very easy for it to flow to me, like the force flows. So before you know it, everything, she promoted Star Wars in the household. So when the toys started coming out, we would go, to Toys R Us or Corvettes or Caldor or Two Guys or KB Toy and, buy one another.
Classic places.
Yeah.
A big one for me was Kitty City.
Kitty City?
Yeah, that was in Whitehall, PA. Yeah.
So I've been collecting. That's basically in a nutshell. So I am a vintage collector because that's what there was. There wasn't anything called vintage years ago. It was just called toys.
Did you play with all those toys, or did you?
Oh yeah.
You played with them as a young girl, and
yeah, because I was on a street, and my two best friends were Marty and Alan, and we were the same age, give or take about a year. So we played Star Wars every single day. I mean, we'd get out our blasters or guns, we'd run up and down the street. I'd have my Millennium Falcon, I'd throw all my figures in it. There was like a carrying case, and somebody would bring the land speeder or like a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, and we would all go to like each other's houses, and we would play. We'd play Star Wars. We'd bomb each other's bases, and then once we got like sick of doing that, then we would play like as kids running around in the woods, thinking it was Dagobah or you're a
stormtrooper.
Yeah,
the days of a good old imagination, right?
Yeah, and then Marty's older brother Jeff would come in, and he would play either Boba Fett or like Darth Vader because he was just a little older and taller. So, and he was kind of like a jerk sometimes. So it'd be very easy for him to like beat up his like brother a little bit. So it was like torture for Luke Skywalker. So it was a lot of fun. So
that's fantastic. Hey, Robin, I got an interesting question, and I ask this with all due respect, but as a female, right? Because that's just it's going to be one of those things that comes up often. So did you ever catch any I don't know, anybody ever find it odd that you were because a lot of boys growing up were heavily into Star Wars and very, fascinated and intrigued by it. Even whether, being a child and playing, imaginative or even like coming up and collecting, did it ever sort of like throw anybody for a curveball? Anybody ever give you a hard time? Because like I said, with all due respect, you're a very beautiful woman. Usually I think, the mentality is like, oh, a girl that's more like a tomboy or a girl that's more like boyish. And, obviously you don't give that off in any way. So has that ever created any kind of indifference or disconnect?
Well, not growing up, because playing with them, we were kids, and kids play with kids. You don't really think about sometimes whether it's a boy or a girl. If you have a common interest and there's only a couple kids on the street and you're stuck together and you watch the same films, and we had each other. So we didn't think anything of it, and it was perfect. Because, Marty had blonde hair, so he was Luke. Alan had dark hair, so he was Han. And then, I had darker hair back then.
I was Leia, so it was convenient.
Well, it was perfect. So we had the trio, and that's all we needed. We get on the bus in the morning, and so we'd be like undercover characters where, you know, I mean, we were spies, and we were like spying on some of the other kids, but we were still in characters like Han, Luke, and Leia. So it never ended. I mean, the games, the cosplay didn't really come into later on in life when, you know, maybe, you know, he'd put on like a vest or things like that, but it was just all in our head. Everything was imagination. And so back then it wasn't anything. And then when I moved homes, and now I'm in the house I'm in now, a good friend of mine said, why don't you, with all the toys you have in this closet, why don't you have a collecting room? Why don't you display? If I had what you have space-wise, I would buy cabinets and I would start to display everything. So I said, that's a good idea. So we went to IKEA and just bought like 3 cabinets at first. Then I went back and got more, and I started putting things in and starting to see what I had. And then I went, wow, I have a lot, but because I still had them in boxes. I still had things from KB Toy and Toys R Us where I had bought for $1 back in 84, 85. And they were still in the same bags with the receipts. Like
$2 for $1 even. 2 for $1.
Like Power of the Force, like two for $1 from KB Toy. So they were still in bags and bags and bags. And I had boxes and all my original ships and everything. A lot of things were still in the boxes because I played with them. But I actually took pretty good care of them because we played with the ships and the figures, but we played with each other more playing Star Wars. You know, we'd go down a hallway and then suddenly we'd be like, it would be the beginning of the Tantive, where with like my parents' bedroom's door was at the end and that would blow open and like we'd be firing. So we played, so I didn't think anything of it, and my toys were in good shape. And then once I realized I didn't have everything, when I went on eBay, I started to go, oh my God. And I had been going to Star Trek conventions, and I was a big Star Trek fan because Star Wars was dead in the 80s. So going to creation conventions and going and seeing, you know, Star Trek, all the Trekkies that were there, there was girls there. There were females that were there. So you never felt out of it like it was just all guys in the room, because there was lots of girls in the short skirts looking like Uhura and or Nurse Chapel. So and the toys were there, and then all the figures were like in the dollar bin. I was like, oh look. So I would go to these Star Trek conventions and buy Star Wars. So I would leave. My handbag would be filled, and I'd have bags of stuff, and nobody wanted it because everyone would go, you want to stick with Star Trek. That Star Wars is gone. Nobody cares anymore. Star Trek is the wave of the future.
Next Generation was around that time, wasn't it? It was when that's when they had the old Galoob ones out. Those were pretty popular back in the day, right?
Yeah,
they were terrible.
I love the cringe. I gotta say, one thing that I think is fantastic is I like we're going back to a time where imagination was commonplace, like being children playing. You're right, there was no divide because there was no judgment. It was just that fun and that environment that you sort of created and lived in that world. But also, as you talk about some of the pieces, going and buying them and keeping them. A lot of people have these amazing collections, but what they've done is through the years they've gone and purchased or pieced together all these things. And you see people that have loose stuff and say, oh, this is my original X-Wing from when I was a kid, but you don't see many people who had original pieces that they had purchased, in store with the actual, in their collection, like on the card backs, and that very rarely comes up. So I think that's, you have two things there, that you get the pieces that you bought out of passion and love, but then you still have them today and you get to enjoy them, for what they are, but also have that nostalgic and sentimental value. So there's a myriad of value there.
But that's some of the difference, I think, with perhaps, I don't know, with guys and girls, because boys would then get sick of the toys and then they move into sports and then they move into girls, and then the parents would just take their stuff and throw it out.
Sell it, give it away. Yeah,
that's
exactly what happened to me. Yep.
So everybody I knew that was a guy, they all went out in garage sales. They were all given away or sold for nothing because the parents were like, it's just a bunch of my son's toys. Mm-hmm. Girls, I feel perhaps the parents didn't necessarily treat the girls' things the same way. So they may have been stored differently and cherished a little differently. And maybe they were kept a little cleaner than the boys' things. I mean, I've had, friends that played, and their things were filthy, and they would have like little sticks of, not dynamite, but fireworks.
Yep.
So they would have
M80s.
the mats. Yeah, exactly, and they blew
Yep.
up. So I had things that were given to me. I'm like, this is melted. You giving this? I mean, this is all blown up. He doesn't have legs. He has his eyebrows are gone, and they're like, oh yeah, I blew him up. I'm like, so you really treated your things like trash. So the parents may have seen these things as being dirty, filthy, broken up pieces of toys, and vintage didn't have a value because there was no such thing as vintage back then.
It wasn't vintage at the time, yeah. And you're right. So if you're blowing something up or if you're blowing something up and destroying it, the perception is, okay, you're growing out of these. Let's get rid of them. Yeah.
Exactly.
I wish I still had.
A lot of things are gone.
I wish I still had some of the figures from when I was a kid. I don't have a single one. You have a bunch though, Rob. You have almost a lot of them. Okay.
Well, I mean, I have all my original. Well, don't forget, I would take the card back to like Toys R Us, and I'd put an X through the back. I have this. Yep. I need this.
Oh, I love it.
But it wasn't that like I needed like 50 stormtroopers. That came later on when I started buying them for like $1 at the, when I go to a Star Trek show, and then I was like, oh look, another stormtrooper. Oh look. Oh, okay. Well, how many can I buy? Okay, so I could buy 20 of them for $15. All right. Well, so then before I know it, I'd have like 50 pounds of plastic in my handbag, and then I'd have to like get on a train and go home through Madison Square Garden across the street from the Penta Hotel. And I had like literally like 50 pounds of like plastic on me, and I wasn't prepared to bring this stuff home, but it had no value. And to me, it was a cherished piece of my childhood to just start buying and hoarding it. And then I would just throw it in a closet and just throw it in a closet. And I didn't think anything of it. And not until I started to set up and put out what I had and put out what I played with that I realized I have nothing. And that's where the whole thing of the worldwide of the Meccano and the Takara and the Palatoy and, all the other things that came from all over the world came into play because those weren't accessible. I mean, a lot of the Power of the Force figures, you couldn't complete it. Even if you wanted it, they were in Australia or in Canada.
Yeah. Anakin and Yak Face. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't even know the foreign names like Meccano and Lily Letty and Palatoy. They only know Kenner from America. Like I didn't know about any of those when I was younger. I just only knew about Kenner.
Well, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I found out about those late as well. I didn't know until like collecting. Yeah, I didn't know until getting into collecting in the internet. Yeah.
And even then, you didn't know. You didn't even know what was available until the internet started happening. You thought things were, non-existent. You didn't even know like what was out there available.
Well, all that I knew was those little catalogs that you would get that would be in like the mini rigs or the ships, and you would say, oh, this is coming soon, or this is. So once you had everything, you had everything. It was very easy to complete it, and to think that wasn't it. But technically it was it, but then it was boxed differently in other countries. So technically I had the Millennium Falcon. But then to realize that I needed to buy one from this country, one from this country, one from this country, one from this country. And there is some slight differences in them. I mean, but now I realize that, you'll never have it all. And I'm happy to know that you'll never have it all because it's a quest that never ends. So it's a game that keeps going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much stick to Kenner. I haven't ventured out into any of the others. So let's get started on some of the pictures. We got
let's take a little peek and see what we get.
And we'll start with, you can give us some which one? That one.
Yeah, that's just like an overview.
It's an overview. Yeah, I'd like to go through the overview first and then kind of like highlight certain things. There's a lot of different stuff in there.
I collect a lot of store displays, and I probably should have. I don't know whether I sent you pictures of the cabinets being open. I don't think I did, but there's a lot inside there of just the displays that came from stores, the counter displays with all the items.
Those are hard to come by.
They are hard to come by, and they're sometimes listed very strangely. It'll be just like Star Wars piece of cardboard, and it's like, what?
Did you see the newer pictures that Gus put up? The one with the Macquarie Cloud City in the background, and then they had a Bespin and a Hoth below it. Oh, I've never seen that one before. I thought it was gorgeous.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, I'll send you I'll send you a picture of it then later.
Send me the picture. I probably missed that.
So there's a lot of different things in here. You got like droids.
I have a lot of foreign pieces. There's a lot of things that are Canadian. There's a lot of things that are bi logo or tri logo, which would mean that they would put two different logos that would either be like French or English or Spanish. And I tried to just have a really good sampling of all the Kenner things. I have the costumes that are up there. And then in the cabinets, there are like store displays and some like kind of oddball items. I collect Sigma, which was by a company called like Taste Setter, where I think they're the ones who put out most of the ceramic items that everyone covets so much, like the tape dispenser and stuff like that.
Wow. Where C-3PO is laying down in?
Yeah. That guy who's very famous for some reason, because it's mildly vulgar, so therefore everybody kind of like finds it very tongue-in-cheek.
I see some Indiana Jones in there as well.
Yeah, and there's my original play sets, which surprisingly I had every single thing left from all the play sets because it was Kenner, and even though I didn't realize it was Kenner, I didn't really consider it and think about it. Yeah. It was made by the same guys under the same roof. And so I was a big Star Wars, Indiana Jones person. I also have a lot of G.I. Joes. So right there, that is the lightsaber display for Return of the Jedi. And those. Yeah, I remember every time I would go to Toys R Us, they were always at the end of the aisle. I'd always pick them up just to hear that whiffle.
I was gonna say, Robin, if I remember correctly, I had those when I was a kid. They had like a thing in the bottom. If you swung it and the air passed through, it would give you that, right?
Yeah, it was like a wiffle bat. So it has that whiffling sound. And so, I mean, even though I always had my red one, I only had a red one. You still always did that. And if you went there with a friend, you would immediately pick them up and start smacking each other. And, you do your Obi-Wan Kenobi moves and stuff like that. And somebody's knuckle always got smacked. So then you'd hear, ow! And my mother would be like, will you two come here right now? My God, I'm trying to help you find these things. And so then I have to get back to serious business of figuring what I needed from the pegs. Now,
this is such a great trip down memory lane.
Yeah, but that's the proof sheet that you're pointing to with the arrow right now. That's the proof for the front of that box, but that's when it was considered Revenge of the Jedi. So that's a revenge proof.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, hold on. So this is a little new to me. So I knew a lot of the posters and a lot of the sort of like pre-promotional materials have Revenge, but I didn't know also for like merchandise and toys, some of them also have Revenge. So they were full on getting everything prepped, even in like the toy merchandise.
Figures even, Jason. They had figure cards as well. I have a couple of those. I have Forlom and Zuckuss of those. I remember the card back, Chris, but did they ever make it out into production? Like they didn't get on the shelves, did they? No, they never made it out in production. They only were proof sheets. That's it.
Yeah, I have some proof cards for some of the figures, and it says Revenge of the Jedi, and then I guess Lucas said it was seen too harsh. That's why they then turned it to Revenge of the Return of the Jedi. But this is a revenge proof sheet for what it was going to be, and then obviously it got scrapped. So I love having that. And the thing above it.
I just recently picked up the Millennium Falcon Revenge proof sheet.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love it. I've been wanting that for many years. It's been the grail. Jason knows this. It's been a grail of mine for so long, and I never thought I would get it. I had a Rebel Transport proof sheet, and I ended up selling that to get the Falcon one.
Yeah, tough decisions. That was a tough. Yeah, he was. Yeah. We were talking about it, and he's like, "Should I? Shouldn't I?" I'm like, "This isn't going to pop up again anytime soon." I was like, "You got to go for it."
The Falcon one comes up quite a bit. It comes up a couple times. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times. And I know that the transport one is more rare. I haven't seen that one come up ever, to be honest. But I just have always wanted the Falcon one, so I kind of made the trade.
Very cool. I'm glad you have it though.
I am very happy with it. This is kind of a but let's talk about this beautiful piece.
I just picked that up from the prop store auction, actually.
Oh, this is a recent acquisition?
Yes, I just picked that up in the past few months. Now, that is considered a production-made helmet for Return of the Jedi. However, there's only 2 of them that are outside of Lucas's collection. and myself and Gus are the only two people that I know of that have this. And from what Gus understands, these actually were screen used because he's gotten to know enough people behind the scenes that were the costumers and the set directors and everybody there who basically made, produced, wrote, directed, did all that good stuff. And he said, Robin, that these were screen used, but there's no way I could prove it because basically everyone's gone that was from back then. Like a lot of the people who made these things and were there. So there's no way to prove it, but this is kind of beaten up. It's kind of used. So he says
there's not really any telltale signs to be able to say, all right, this mark is, you can screen match this weathering, or it's just they all look the same. So
well, another thing is
everyone that was made was used. They didn't make that many of them, so the few that were made were used.
That's the point I was going to say. As you were explaining that, it's not like a trooper or a pilot of some sort where they had to make numerous ones. I mean, we only saw 2 Royal Guards, so I can't imagine them having made 10 or 15 of these. So yeah, it makes sense that they would have made maybe 4 or 5 tops for any given reason, and yeah, they would have probably switched them out, or it seems like it would have had some screen time, one point or another, even if it was just a few minutes or switched out at one point. Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. This is fantastic.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's really hot and it's kind of heavy and it's very cumbersome, and it has zero visibility. Basically, you put that on and you're not defending anybody. You're not doing anything. You're just standing there hoping to like not pass out. So,
is this made of fiberglass? Is this made of fiberglass or is it ABS plastic or what?
It's like a resin. I wish I would have taken a picture of it and put it on the inside, but yeah.
You know, nice. You're talking to a true Star Wars fan, Chris, when you have something this unique, right? Production or possibly screen use from Return of the Jedi, and they actually put it on. She had to try it on. That's the best part.
One of the first things I did is like I get it out, I'm like, oh God, this thing's horrible, and then it's like, oh God, and I just hope.
Well, most people would be like, they would treat it like a Fabergé egg, and of course, as fans, we're like, oh, we got to try this thing on. I got to put this thing on and see what it feels like. I love it.
Doesn't matter how much it costs. I got to put it on my head.
No, I own it. I'm gonna get my money's worth out of it. I'm gonna wear it. I'm gonna drive around town in it. I'm gonna go food shopping in it. I really don't care.
That's awesome.
You know?
Have you worn it to bed yet, Robin? That's the question.
You know, you can't because of those points.
Oh yeah, okay.
Points in the front and the back. I'm not saying that I tried. It sounds like I tried, but you don't sleep well in it. I'll leave it at that. Which doesn't mean I tried. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
It does make me think though. So when you had said like zero visibility, and as we unearth more pieces that were either production or screen used, they seem to be these really, really uncomfortable, awkward type things to wear or have on your face or on your body. And it amazes me when we're watching it on screen how maneuverable and how well they were able to accommodate wearing these costumes and whatnot. It just, I mean, these guys kind of just stood still. They didn't, but like take into consideration like a biker scout or even a stormtrooper, like those things don't rest well on the head. It's like a bobblehead. It's strapped to your chin. You gotta kind of like look down and move oddly. It just amazes me how smoothly it all transitioned onto film.
Okay, Benjamin, I'll wear it and go shopping with you. I think we'll look great. We won't look suspicious at all. It's not like security will be following us around for anything.
Well, no, it's for COVID. That's your COVID mask.
He troops as a biker scout.
As a scout,
yeah.
I love all my 501st boys and girls. They're the best.
Yeah, I think him and also Robin, who's in the chat. She cosplays as well, right? They're husband and wife, and they look amazing in their cosplays. Yeah, I believe. Who
Robin does she cosplay as? I've only ever seen Benjamin's.
Let's see. Yeah, Robin, if you're in the comments, let me know. Yeah, she'll let us know.
I just got up actually from the Propster auction too. Propster recently has been getting into toys, and I've always wanted one of these. And this actually was Howard Kazanjian's, from Return.
Oh, awesome!
So this was his private one that he was issued. He actually was given a lot of toys, from Return of the Jedi and from all the other films. But this was his personal one, and I actually own a couple of his pieces. So this is another one I now own. Kind of cool. No, I haven't played with it.
Yeah, I remember this from the prop store auction. I remember seeing, we talked about this during our show the one time, Jason. Yeah.
Yeah. We reviewed the auction still.
I'm just happy to have it. It actually is unused. So clearly he never played with it, but he owned it. So yeah, it's big.
Not to focus on this too long, but if I'm correct, Robin, what I understand, and I could be wrong, this was one of those things that it was a pre-existing toy, and they just sort of moved it over, stuck some Star Wars stickers on it, and made a Star Wars version of it.
Yeah, Kenner reused a lot of their molds, and this was a shooting game, like a shooting gallery, kind of like a Western kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason, I don't know if you know this, but the Ewok Village and the Gamorrean Guard were repurposed later on for Robin Hood.
Like Robin Hood or something, right? Yeah. I just found that out recently, though. I didn't know. I think I saw it somewhere.
This came in, I believe, red plastic. This wasn't white plastic. I think the game they used a mold and they injected a red plastic for the shooting game. So it's the same style, but it's a different color.
Yeah. Okay. And some artwork.
I actually have a lot. I have a lot of these, and I recently had some of them. I had them framed for a while, and I've had them sitting, not doing anything with them. So I decided to throw them up on a wall. And these are all from the Clone Wars. These are the production hand-painted backgrounds. So,
okay.
Beautiful.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, were these acquired individually? Like, as you got one, you moved on to another, or were you able to get them as a lot?
No. This was one at a time, painfully one at a time. They're very hard to come by, and people now all really want them, and I never even see any of them for sale anymore. But there used to be auctions on eBay, and I would just try to make sure I won them. And sometimes if somebody was really gung-ho, you'd end up paying a lot more for it than you thought you would. And some of these I paid maybe like $100 for, and some of them like well over $1,000. It just depended on if somebody really wanted them, and they're cool. I mean, they're neat. They're different. I didn't know what else to do, so I threw them up, and now I get to look at them. I actually am not a Clone Wars fan, but I'm a fan of the artwork. And the artwork is beautiful, and these actually were very delicate. If you were to have like licked your thumb and touched any one of these before they were framed, that would have like transposed right. They would have just come right off the sheet. So they actually were very delicate. So for me, I wanted them framed, even if I wasn't going to display them, just to protect them.
Yeah, they're beautifully
What are they
framed,
made of?
so I like the simplistic.
Well, they're on like a cotton paper. It's like an artist's paper, and
the paper's very fragile too. It's not like a hard stock or like a 320 GSM. It's pretty thin.
It isn't. Yeah, I guess it's acrylic. I don't know what the medium is, but it's very delicate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautifully framed.
Nicely displayed,
I like that
too.
setup.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very different. That's what I like about it. It's different.
Okay.
All right, so let's go like the bottom, that little R2D2. That's actually a prototype lunch pail. It's like a little bucket. Yeah. So that was an unproduced product that obviously never came out, and that little lid comes off, and that was where you'd bring your lunch. And I actually was able to purchase that from the Hakes auction that recently was out. And believe it or not, the first time I saw it was at Gus's house. I saw it and I was like, that is so cute. And he goes, well, there's a couple of them that are in the world. They made about a dozen. I believe there was another one that might have been made, another version with a clear dome. But this was the one with like a solid plastic one. So that's pretty cool. The figures in front that says Space Figures, those are from Ireland. Those were leftovers from Return of the Jedi. So they just basically like ripped them off their bubbles and they repackaged them. And
those are like kind of like a dollar store type of sale, like over in Ireland. That's fantastic.
Kind of like what they did at KB Toy with the 2-packs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Together.
Same kind of thing. So they did that, and those were released in Ireland. Up in the center, there's a Jawa. That's a removable hood one. That's a Lily Letty that was released in Mexico, and it's more uncommon. And then you have the Tri logo, like the little mini sets. That they're not really necessarily mini rigs, but they're kind of hard to come by to find those. And they really are. The card backs quite often, or bag figures, and they would just jam them in there. They'd fold the figures, they'd fold them and just jam them in there.
They would fold the cards up. They'd roll
the cards up. They literally like folded them and
Oh.
just like shoved them in.
Wow.
And
Okay, I
back
didn't know
is
that.
a lot of the Boba Fett's, the Guerre des Étoiles is the Canadian one. The one in back is a Kenner Star Wars. The next one over is an Empire Strikes Back. I also have a Toltoys Boba Fett, which is really hard to come by, is finding a 12-inch Toltoys figure. They just, they're, anything from anything from Australia, really, they're so limited. I didn't realize that they made things in such a small quantity, but I'm a huge Toltoys fan. I love Australia.
Let me ask you a question. The Gamorrean Guard and the AT-AT driver that are on the Power of the Force card, were those they weren't released? Were they released in Australia, or they were never released?
Oh, they were released. All the Power of the Force figures were released. It's not like they were just prototypes or like salesman samples. They were genuinely released, but they just weren't released here, and they were in limited quantity. It's kind of like the tri-logo General Madine. When the tri-logo one, there isn't that many of them. For some crazy reason, that's the hardest one to get a hold of. That's the last one I'm missing. And it's like that one just was in such a limited quantity.
And that character is so obscure. People don't really care that much about General Madine, but he's pretty damn expensive.
I know, right?
So what do we got here?
This is an unproduced blueprint. It's like a die line from Bradley Time Clocks, and they were going to be putting out this clock with the Biker Scout on it, and it just never got made, and it was scrapped. But I'm able to show proof that this was actually something that was going to be made.
Okay, so awesome, pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love whenever you see any type of artwork, concept artwork, proof artwork of any kind. It some of the things that we take for granted, some of the pieces, it just really puts into perspective like how much work goes into something, whether we're gonna see it come to fruition or not. It's just a lot of a process from A to B to get to where it needs to get to. So stuff like this, when you catch that moment in the middle, I always find pieces like this fascinating.
Yeah,
I like that. I like the angle that the Biker Scout's drawn on, like from rear view, kind of like looking up at it. It's pretty cool.
It is cool. I liked it, and that's another reason why I framed it, is because what else can you do with it? You have to preserve it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. The two on the wall, the two X-wings are actually from like 1975, 76. Those are Joe Johnston. The die lines for when he was creating these, and a lot of the things that he drew were based on real aircrafts. So when he was going through the design ideas, he made these, and they're pretty cool. I mean, they're close to what the X-wing eventually became, but these two die lines are actually of my favorite. And down below is the a proof sheet for the little Ewoks, the little Ewok plushes, and so they're not cut out. So that's what those little multicolored tags are. And then this is a Empire Strikes Back Bespin Guard screen used jacket. So this one is in fact screen used, and I also had picked that up from the prop store auction.
Do you know who wore it? Was it Jeremy Bullock or?
No. Actually, it's tough. It's actually is very small. This is a very small jacket, and there's one guy that's on my page, Bespin Prime. That's my page that I run, and it was in fact a Bespin Guard, but I don't think he wore this one. It's actually hard. There's a few of these jackets that are still floating around. There wasn't that many of them made, but this one, I've been trying to match it up because the stitching is a little different on it, on one of the lower corners. So I eventually will figure out who wore it.
Jason, did these two pictures make it into that Joe Johnston art book?
They may have, but then again, there were so many variations. A lot of the more popular ones, like I don't want to say popular, but a lot of the ones that got closer, like she was saying, like, as he was taking reference from actual aircrafts and some of the inspiration he had from like Sid Mead and his work, he's, you see what's called like a study, right? An artist does a study. then they sketch it out further, then it turns into the painting. So I think Joe Johnson had this process of going through this, mental process of jotting down these ideas, but he did it in such a documented way artistically that there ended up being a number of images. And I think the ones that got closer to being like, okay, this is 99% to what the X-Men is going to be, I think those are the ones that they sort of jammed into some of those books. But with these die lines, they could very well be, I don't know, I don't remember all the images by heart in the book, but they could very well be in there, because anything like this, especially when you have something coming at you frontward and you have an angled piece, they try to give you that perception and show you full on. So they very well might be. Those are beautiful pieces, by the way, Robin. I'm a huge concept collector. I love all of Ralph's work and Joe Johnson's work. And yeah, I can't get enough of it. It's fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah. That one was in the last auction, right? Like you got that at the same time.
I've had these for years. No, I've had these for many years.
Oh, I thought they were in the recent one.
I think from Germany years ago, and I don't even remember the other one. I've had these 7 to 10 years.
No, okay. I thought there was one recent, but I could be mistaken.
No. Oh yeah, there is. I mean, they do show up, but no, I just had those two. Yeah, so this is another one of those cabinets that when you open it up, you can see there's so many odd things that are in here that you're never going to find. I mean, there's like a button display that's like on one of the lower shelves, and there's like a 12-back bin header that I had framed, and on the bottom is Takara trading cards, and
what are these here? These are they like trading card sets right
here? Yes, those are all the wax packs. Okay. So I have all of the cards still in boxes. And then there's even some transition boxes that went from one to the other. So there's a lot of them.
What are these here, Robin?
That is a soap.
This is soaps, right?
Yeah. So those were 4-packs, and those are all the 4-packs that are on the display. That is the thing the bottom right. Yeah, go over one more. Yeah, that they're actually that was from like a bubble gum machine. Those were like the little rubber gummy things that would come out. And if you point to something, I'll tell you.
This stuff is great.
Is there anything you want to know about, Jason?
No, I'm just kind of taking this all in because, as I mentioned earlier, it's it is, but in a good way. This is what I'm getting. I'm kind of getting the feels here because it's one of those things where, like, when you cover vintage, you're covering vintage, like a card back figures. You very rarely get to see this stuff like. This is really hitting home and hitting hard, like to the point where I can actually like feel and smell certain environments. And I remember be it like Bradley's in the checkout line, a lot of these like Star Wars impulse items would be there. Like, as you, Ma, can I get a pack of cards? And can I get one of these? And, it's just something that was so commonplace and that you did every time you went to the store. So seeing this stuff is really like, it's a magnificent feeling, but in a different way. It's one thing to ooh and ah at a lot of carded figures, but this stuff is so unique in its own right. Even like the soaps, I remember what they did at one point is they had birthday candles. And I think they may have used the same molds as the soaps because you could buy them like a Yoda or a Chewbacca, and they had like the same colors and same molds and things like that. And I remember this stuff, whether it was like for birthdays or having like, Mr. Bubbles or whatever Star Wars versions of it, because we all used and had this stuff as kids. It's phenomenal that
I never really thought of Jason. I never really thought of vintage as all of the like
ancillary items that come along with it.
Yeah, soaps and cards and all that stuff until I bought this book. I don't remember what it was. It had all of the carded figures in, and then it had everything else that like a lot of other things that were put out at the same time. I wish I could remember the name of that book.
Is that like a Sam Suite or one of Gus's
books? It's from one of those usual the guys who have those kind of books out at the time. It was in the 90s I bought those, and that's really where I started using that. All right, I'm going to get this figure, I'm going to get that figure, I'm going to get this poster. So.
Now, Robin, where these pieces are so unique in and of their own right, okay, do you find yourself, like, once you started acquiring a few, like, okay, I have to sort of complete this aspect of it or complete that aspect of it, or do you sort of keep an open mind to bringing it all into the collection? Like, is there like, do you now have a specific, or is it just something that?
Well, just as I find things, I go, oh, that's weird. Oh, that's different. Oh, that's kind of cool. And then you end up going down a rabbit hole of, well, now there was like 5 in the series of that, or, you know, there was like 3 of them. So then you have to find them. But there's very little knowledge that can be had on these things unless you talk to other people or you go into, you know, Gus and Duncan's book or Sansweet's book, which is the one you probably were thinking of that was sold on QVC. Because I had that same book and then I lost it. And then I had said to Stephen not long ago, I said, you know, I just bought another one of these books. And the one I bought from QVC back in the 90s, I lost and you had signed it. So he signed this other one for me and he wrote in it, like, don't lose me. Like, don't lose this one.
I used to open that book so much that I completely destroyed the binding. I ended up hole punching it and putting it in a 3-ring binder so I could keep looking at it.
That's actually a good idea. Now, a lot of these things that you have to start to look for the oddities because you get burned out on looking at, you know, the carded figures and boxed ships and play sets. It's just, I'm going to call it pedestrian. And those items can be $10,000 sometimes when they're sealed and perfect. And that's a fortune. But some of these items that are here are maybe $20 or $30, like the soaps, those 4 packs of soaps. You can buy that on eBay for like $25. And that's cool.
I was just describing to Jason over the last couple of days. People are under the impression that vintage cards are rare. They're really not. You can have just about any vintage carded figure you want if you look it up on eBay. Almost. There are some.
We did talk about that. So they produce those things in the millions. And even though this stuff was mass produced, it's different because toys and figures were meant to be just that. This was all ephemeral. This was all ephemera right here. So this stuff wasn't meant to last.
This was disposable. These were all disposable items. I mean, there's foods in there and like rum and like for wax packs. I mean, nobody saved the boxes. You threw away the box.
None of it was produced with the sense of this was meant to keep and saving. Again, it was just all ephemeral products, which even though they were mass produced, they're so much more rare and you know, complete standing these days. So that's why I think it's a lot more interesting and unique to look at.
Yep, I agree. So this is Canadian. These were the 3 sets that came out. They were the utility belt sets for Luke, Vader, and Leia. And Luke's was the most interesting because it had like a little grappling hook and it had a lightsaber and a gun and his little belt. So that's kind of cool. And then if you click to the next one, you'll see it's not in this order, but those were only released in Canada. They didn't ever really make it here, and they're kind of hard to come by.
The pistols.
Yeah, right? The utility belt sets. I have other pictures of them somewhere else in the collection that I guess they didn't.
I don't know how it got mixed up somehow, but I just recently became aware of these pieces. Somebody had bought all 3 on one of the Facebook pages, and they're new to me.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Who made this for you?
It wasn't made for me. My mother actually bought that for me. That was made in 1996 during what we call the dark times in collections. So the dark days. That was from FAO Schwartz, and it was a limited edition piece that was in their catalog, and my mother had bought it for me, and I got it for Christmas in 1997, and it's pretty cool. It's based off the mold, the molds that you know George Lucas still has. I believe he still has this piece, and it's really incredible. I mean, it's massively big, and you could realize how big Harrison Ford really is when you stand next to it. So, and in front of it is a toothbrush display from Oral-B. And then to the left of it is the Omni soap display that was sold in stores, which was basically a big R2-D2.
Yeah, those are cool.
Now, did that come all pieced together, or did you have to like get the soaps and?
No, you know, I ended up buying it from a guy who spent, from what I'm gathering, a very long time buying the soaps and making it perfect to put it back to the display, like what it looked like in a store.
Oh, fantastic! This
I've seen some people actually, Jason. I've actually seen some people like make store displays like in the old days where they had like the metal shelves and kind of put them on
and peg the figures and other things like that.
You walked into an old pegging them.
Yeah. This Han and Carbonite though, it's interesting. Before you said it was FAO Schwarz, I was looking at it, and I know they don't differ significantly, but there was an FAO Schwarz in Boston for quite some time, and it wasn't anywhere near like the size of New York where you had life-size ads and such. It was, it was a lot more tame, a lot more smaller, but it's still Boston, a major metropolitan city. So on the second floor, they had a Star Wars section, and I remember like it was yesterday. They had the Elusive Concepts, Yoda and Rancor, and they had this always hanging on the wall, and there was like a little subsection you could walk into, and there was the Han and Carbonite. And I just remember being like, it just seemed like, wow, I'm looking at, to me as a kid, I'm thinking maybe this is one from the movie. I didn't know any better, but I was always in such awe of this. And then I later learned a few years down the road, the whole time it was hanging there, that it was actually something you could purchase. But I think they were, I could be, again, completely wrong, but I think they were almost like made to order, or they made them in like small batches. And if you purchased it, they would maybe make a few other there wasn't a lot of them floating around up there.
No, there wasn't. I really don't know how. She just called up, bought it, and it was delivered in a massive wooden crate. But nice. I couldn't tell you how many were made. I know that they didn't sell well. The ones that they did make didn't sell well. So,
I think there was just some sticker shock at the time. I think for something that was
over $1,000, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
how old were you?
25 years ago.
How old were you when you got this?
I was old. I was like 24, 25.
Nice. All right, I'll move on to the next picture.
Okay, so yeah, some interesting pieces here. If you look at the top right, those are costumes that came from Spain. One is a Leia costume, and one is a Luke costume. And they had these bootleg guns. This is one of the few pieces that is partially licensed through Lucasfilm, so it's still considered bootleg and licensed. So there was like a little bit of official and a little unofficial, but most of the toys were either one or the other. But these are pretty cool because they use this other kind of gun from Metroletta, which were from Spain. They put in, they were like the spark kind of guns. So those were put in with these costumes. And in front of that is a Ewok cassette holder. They had like, the cassettes from the show. And up top,
that's a record. That's the records, right? The Ewok,
those are the little records. Yep, and those were the cassettes that were on the bottom right. And then you could see some other like costumes. I really like the costumes for kids. So those were by a company of the top ones, and to the left are by Camus. Those were released, and they're very different than anything that like Ben Cooper or any of the other ones like Don Post masks. They're very different. And then if you go down into the cabinet, I'm a huge land speeder fan for some crazy reason.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That just ended up happening because there were so many that were released and so many iterations in different countries. So like that one there is a Meccano one from France, and then in back are the radio controlled ones. So that's pretty, it's pretty cool.
See, this is, Jason, where I was telling you before, I like this Meccano because it's a different picture than the Canon.
Yeah, the picture.
So that's something that I would be interested in.
But for example, Palatoy used that same background for their Star Wars items. They put that black starry background to their pieces, and I don't think anybody else really did that.
No.
Yeah, these are some great. One thing I think is interesting is, and this is totally a happy accident, but when you look at those costumes, the guns, I noticed that the gun and the trigger, the blue and orangish color, is the same color as the jackets that they wore when they were filming ESB. So I'm sure that wasn't intentional.
It wasn't intentional because Metroletta only made those guns in like a few colors, I think 2 or 3 different colors. And those are just the ones that they ended up, throwing in. So those were from a company in Spain that made those weapons, and they were bootleg items of Star Wars items kind of to begin with. And then, but some of the things were licensed also. So it's a nice note.
Yeah. I figured it wasn't intentional, but I thought it was like a cool little, it's just a nice little happy accident there. But these are
the other 2 costumes that were released, and the Vader one is pretty lame. It's just like a lightsaber, a gun, and the belt. but Leia's was cool because it had the white belt. And then again, these were all redone. There was a Buck Rogers one. There was many different versions of these were out in the same box with the same kind of trays, the same kind of guns, and they just were different colors and they had different names, plaques put on. But they reused this toy for many different shows and shows that were out. But the Leia one is cool because she has a little communicator and a watch. And,
is this the same pistol over here? Is this the same as the Vader one right here? These two?
Yeah, those are some loose ones that I have. So yeah.
Okay.
And it's like a little snap gun. I mean, it just has like a little snap. I mean, it's really lame. There's really nothing.
Right.
It's seriously lame, but they're cool now because they're just so hard to come by. And in the back, you can see I have a lot of die casts, but a lot of them are foreign. So like on that shelf in the back, a lot of them are from all different countries. So they could either be Harbert from Italy, or Palatoy from England, or Takara from Japan, or I have a Toll Toys one, which is really hard to come by. I have a Toll Toys land speeder, and that I have a Toll Toys land speeder in the front there. That's in that little acrylic case. So I'm happy to have him. And
is most of your stuff sealed, or are you like care if it's opened, or how is that?
When it's hard, when something comes on a card back, it has to be sealed. I mean, the bubble still has to be attached. Still has to be in really good shape. But when it comes to, let's say, a Toll Toys item, to get something sealed, you just can't for love or money. So it doesn't really matter. So a lot of these foreign pieces that are very, very obscure have been opened. But if you can still have it with the contents complete, you're aces. That's the best you're going to get.
Yeah. I like this. I like this.
The TIE Bomber?
Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, the TIE Bomber is nice.
Yeah, I have 3 of them. I have that one, I have a loose one, and then I have a graded one. I don't know how that happened. But I was on the kick for TIE Bombers because at that point, I'm like, I'm going to get a TIE Bomber no matter what I do. And I got a loose one. I'm like, I got a better one, and then I actually had it graded because it was nice. And then I have that one.
Beautiful.
Thanks. Okay, so these are the masks. Now, the 2 mask Ewok heads are all original pieces that were left over from Stuart Freeborn's pieces from Return of the Jedi that were not used, but he made them for the film. So, and the eyes, the teeth, everything.
Finally, you get these from Tom?
I didn't buy them from Tom. Tom made Tom Spina from Regal Robots. He made the top one by hand. That actually was his that he made by hand, and the one that's in the lower left was made by a former employee who is very artistic. And then you see some Lily Letty 12-inch figures below it. I have those also, so they're really pretty cool. The Han Solo.
That was interesting because it's green.
Yeah, there's also a red one that was released also.
Now tell me about this.
Those are glass. Those are glass leaf from Brazil. I think I have some better pictures of those later on. I have all those also. They're hard to come by. The boxes, because the country is so humid, the cardboard didn't really hold up that great. Okay, here's some more cool things.
Is it possible to jump back one?
Sure.
So this baby Ewok here, Robin, what's can you tell us a little bit about the little baby?
Yeah, there's a better picture of him later on, I believe. That is Nibbit from Return of the Jedi. He was the baby that was in the basket that they were petting his head. That's actually a puppet. You can put your whole hand all the way up and into his head, and his mouth moves, and there's wires that are attached to his hands to move him. So he is the one that is the only one from Return of the Jedi. And
so we're looking at the actual one.
That is the one. That is the
fantastic.
Oh wow. That's the one in the basket.
That is the one in the basket that I saw back then. I went, oh, and now I have it. So every time, if the house was ever on fire, that's the one I would run for.
That's the one you're grabbing. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet, Robin.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Again, more of the costumes. Yeah, the droids' costumes. Yeah. There was only 2. there was the C-3PO and then like, the Wicket costume and the guns. I have all the guns. I love them. To find an Empire Strikes Back one, the electronic laser blaster is really hard. That box is it's a smaller box than the regular Star Wars one, the Stormtrooper. That's pretty cool. I actually got that from Duncan.
Oh, nice. I like this Slave One with the action playset in the behind it.
Yeah, and it's complete. It's so hard. I had gotten the box from one person, and I got the playset from the other. Now, there is also I collect all the special offers. This playset actually is shorter than the other one that's released for Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, because the box is a smaller configuration. So they so both play sets are the same play set, but they actually cut this one down and it's shorter when you hold them side by side.
Nice.
Fact.
And a Vlix. Got a Vlix down there too.
That's classic too, right?
Yeah, but there might be a better picture of him later on.
I think there was, yeah.
And as you see, I have a lot of those Canadian pieces in that picture. I collect all the foreign because I love anything in different writing.
Okay.
So you see the Gale, the 12. I love it.
I like how these costumes, it looks like they have white capes. You see that? Are they white capes or are they just like a plastic?
They have a plastic kind of crappy costume. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the 70s when we wore those costumes with the plastic mask with the rubber band around the back. They don't know what it's like today.
Those kids, they don't know.
No. So what's this thing here?
Well, that is a loose. That is the Luke AM radio headset. Okay. And if you look in the center, the second shelf down, I have a boxed one there that's sealed. It's pretty cool. I also have some of the production work, transparency for all the artwork that's there. You can't really see it, so that's it's neat. The Jawa on the top right, and then the Chewbacca puppet. Those are both from Canada by a company called Regal, and they put these two oddball items out, and I think they're pretty neat.
They're pretty cool. And these are, what are these down here?
Those are ceramics. Those are just like different, like 20th Century Fox and like different things. They're some of them are bootlegs. Some of them are just, like coin banks. And that actually is the die-cast bin for the die-cast ships. Okay. So that's the cardboard box that the die-cast ships came in. And then the header that was attached to it, I have framed on another wall. Okay, so I had gotten them separately. And on the second shelf, you see a box that's like red and blue. This one here. Right there. Yeah, that is actually Uze. That's an Uze piece.
Wow. Okay. So those are like Uze mini rig style pieces?
Yes. So they only make mini rigs. The other one. Yeah.
I've never seen those.
No.
Yeah, they look about the same. I mean, they really are about the same, but it's just the box artwork, and that one is just so perfect.
I did not know that they came out with the Uze vehicles whatsoever. I just thought it was the figures, the blue Hawk Trooper.
Nope. Yep.
Wow.
Now, Robin, I'm curious. I was gonna ask us this question, but you might know. So when I started learning about Uze and how some of them were acquired or even found out about, it was from a gentleman named Lev. He lives in New York. He owns and operates Toy Tokyo. Mm-hmm. You ever communicated or interacted with Lev?
I have not, but yes, we do know each other, but I have not met him, no.
I know he gave a bit of a backstory of initially finding like the factory where the Uze figures were, because he had a bunch in his shop in New York, and it was just, people kind of questioning like, hey, how do you have more than just, one or two? And he kind of just, just discussed this whole thing. So I was just wondering like how many other people were familiar with some of that, because the Uze stuff is just really funky and really outside the box considering some of the international stuff. It's really out there,
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, just looking at the figures themselves, the card backs are so whimsical and crazy that they use calculators and phones, and they use whatever junk they had around them to try to make something look a little sci-fi to put these figures with. That they're great. Even if you just own the card back for the figure, you don't even need to have one carded. It's great. It's a great piece of it.
they're pretty much bootlegs, though, right?
They are bootlegs,
Okay.
but they're terrible bootlegs. They're horrible bootlegs. They're made like crap. They feel different. The plastic on them, everything about them, and that's what's so great about it is that they're made so poorly, but they're so great. I mean, even when they made the Hoth, the Hoth Trooper in blue. I mean, blue with a white gun. I mean, why? I mean, if you're gonna make it, why don't you just try to make it accurate? They didn't.
Just do it. Just do white and blue. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
You think they didn't even watch the movie?
They probably didn't.
Probably not.
Probably didn't.
Nope.
They even have there's one figure, I forget which one it is, but it has like such crude artwork and it's like a little spaceship flying. It's like they put no effort into it.
None.
This is a production made piece, obviously not fully assembled. It's actually quite large. It's not a small piece. It's for, the Death Star for Return of the Jedi. And all these little pieces of metal were finally put together to be like a layer in the final production, but I guess they had more than enough, and there was a couple that were left over, and I'm lucky enough to have like a nice size piece of it. So
yeah, that is a decent size. I see some floating around that are like maybe a tenth of that. They're like little sections, or what it seems like is whoever may have gotten their hands on some of these, like cut them down into smaller pieces to sort of disperse them out, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's like 8-9 inches by like 6 inches, so it's a nice size piece. Maybe it's a shade bigger, but yeah, I love it, so I'm happy to have it.
I like the float frame. I like the idea of the float frame to really give it the presence. Yeah.
I really didn't know what else to do with it.
Well, you did very good job on it, Barbara.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. There it is. There's Nippet. Yeah. Now, he was altered from the original film in a patch of fur underneath here in the chest. They like
that. Okay, I see. I was gonna say that tone of the
it's almost like a lavender because they reused a lot of the props and the items for Caravan of Courage and the films that were released on TV.
All those wonderful films, right?
Yeah,
all the classics.
Yeah, so this actually was slightly altered, as was a lot of the original props, to try to make it a little different. So they just basically like lightened the patch of fur there. But besides that, everything else has not been altered since Return of the Jedi.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I gotta ask. I mean, something like this where it's such a it's that scene and everybody when you see that scene, there he walks. It's got to be weird when you're such a passionate fan who loves the movie as a child, and now you actually have this thing like in your home, something that
it's real. It's totally
it's gonna be right,
because you watch the film and then suddenly you go in and look at it, and it's kind of like, wow, well, here it is. This is what happened to it. And unfortunately, there was only like maybe 7 or 8 baby Ewoks that were made, and a lot of them were in really bad condition. They did not last the test of time. The fur is gone. They're very bald. They're very beaten up. So a few people I know have the other ones, or the other ones have gone to auction. You can actually see the pictures of the auction houses that are still online, and they look terrible. And Nippet here is actually in excellent condition. So I'm very happy. And he's a named Ewok, and a lot of the other ones were not. Now, this was not sold through Prop Store as Nippet. They didn't know that, but I talked to a couple of people who knew, and they said this actually is the name. This was Nippet, and it wasn't listed in the sale as such, but that actually was his name. So it's kind of cool.
Another thing I always found interesting.
How did they come up with the name?
Well, Nippet is also an Ewok. Well, Nippet is an Ewok that when they you can even buy a baby Nippet in the plushes. So there's Latara and Nippet and all the other Milani, and there's other Ewoks that are out. If you watched any of like the Ewok cartoons, which I never did, which I really should. I know, as a fan, I feel like I need to have watched some of these things and I haven't. But I think
you'll appreciate it more thinking about it rather than probably watching it. So it probably doesn't hold up very well.
It's kind of like the Clone Wars. I love the Clone Wars artwork, and yet I haven't really watched them. And everyone goes, "Oh, no, 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 no! In fact, you have to watch them in certain order. This one before this one, and this one." And I go, "Yeah. I'll get around to it, and I'll let you know."
That's me. They tell me all the time, and I'm like, I can't. Another thing though about having props like this, and Chris, we can move forward. I was just going to touch on something. Is it's not only just having the prop, but you actually get to experience firsthand, or even see, like you mentioned, that's function as a puppet, the wires, and you get to see sort of the marvel of engineering that went into making these what they are when you have the piece in hand, and that adds a little bit more of that extra sort of sneak peek behind the production of the movie. It's not just having the prop, but seeing the engineering expertise that went into making these things.
Oh yeah, he's real. Like you would look at him and you'd feel him, and you would hold him, and he feels real. You just the suspension of disbelief. You suddenly are there going, "I'm actually holding a real Ewok," and it feels really good.
Not any Ewok. The baby Ewok that's in the
baby.
That everybody saw it and went, "Oh, that's just amazing." I could never imagine that as a kid watching these movies, thinking to myself, I could ever own a piece from on the screen.
You don't think about that, though. Nobody thought about owning the items. Nobody considered that. That wasn't like something that was in anyone's wheelhouse.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And there's 12-inch Leia with her nice hair.
That's a little Letty. This is actually really big. This is like 7-8 feet long. This is a blueprint for an item that predates the figures. It's an R2-D2 that's by MPC Models. Kenner had acquired MPC Models years ago, and this was the model that they put out before the figures even came out. And that's, from what I understand, this is the only blueprint of R2-D2 from the MPC Models that is around. This is it.
So yeah, now that I'm looking to the left and right, you can see the speeder bike clock and the Death Star construction piece. So this really puts into perspective the size of it. Wow.
It's really big. Yeah, it would cover the whole wall, and it's like a big wall. And I still haven't hung it yet because I'm very lazy. Also, part of me it constantly worries about when I hang them that they're going to fall. Honestly, like every time I go down there and I look at all those other pictures on the other side of this wall is where they are for the Clone Wars. I expect to see one on the ground. So I'm paranoid. Okay, so I just leave it on the ground and I go, okay, it's still there.
Whatever works.
It's really cool because it really is
these individual. What are these individual drawings of like the spruce? All the pieces, like they kind of like had a blueprint.
This is everything. This is the entire model, every single piece. I don't have it in this photograph because But
it's like it's an exploded view, right? It's an engineered exploded view of
every single. I mean, because it goes to the left and it goes to the right, like quite a bit. So
I love the handwritten pencil marks on there that kind of like give you equate that they're doing division on it. That's pretty awesome.
We all knew there'd be math eventually.
Yeah.
Up there. Soaps. Yep. Store displays.
I don't remember this kind of stuff. When I was a kid, I just don't remember this stuff.
I don't either. I don't remember ever seeing this. I have no idea what this would have even been. I'm sure somewhere. I wanted to think that something like this would have been in Macy's, in the kids department. Who knows?
One thing, though, I've learned over the years as I started getting a little bit more educated on this stuff, I noticed that some markets or some areas were like, you might have had this more heavily sent to areas of like the Northeast versus like the Midwest. And I don't know if there was any rhyme or reason to it, but, or it could have just been like certain merchants, if they were, more congested in a certain area, it was, just kind of like how you see today, certain areas you go to and you may have 5 targets within, 6 square miles where, other places you might have, 2 targets in 10 miles. And it could have just been things like that because I may not remember these exactly, but I remember like having the bubble bats and the soaps and all that stuff because it was just so, again, at that time, it was Star Wars was everywhere, at least at the age I was at when I was a kid. I even remember like the little plastic heads filled with candies. Remember those?
Pez.
No. They were like the head. It was like Darth Vader's head, Yoda's head, and each
Yeah,
was like little. Yeah.
they were in the cabinet in one of the earlier pictures.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Are these toothbrushes here?
Though, yes, that is the Oral-B display with all the little toothbrushes, and then there was a mail-away one. I have one of those in front.
Okay,
that's
cool.
like a little black box, but that's actually hard to come by. Just even though you would sit there and go, who would want it? Me.
I'm sure it would be. I mean, people. Why would you keep this stuff? I can't even fathom the mentality back in the day is that people would keep all these soap bottles or toothbrushes or even figures
forgotten
still
about.
packaged.
The thing is that they a lot of times there's still boxes of items that are showing up that are still sealed because they were just extras,
surplus, dead stock,
put away that nobody really thought about. And now grandpa's dead, or the store gets cleaned out and they go through the attics and this stuff just keeps getting found.
I wish I could find some stuff.
Now that you can, and not only do you have the sentimental and nostalgic vibe, but now you appreciate sort of like display art a little bit better, like the style of art that was used, the coloring. It takes on a whole new life. I like these cards down here, the way those are packaged.
Those are really hard to come by. You would think those were called rack packs, and those were
I've never seen them before today.
Yeah. And if you really think about it, they probably made tens of thousands of these, yet they're so hard to come by. I had gotten one years ago, and now I just had one. I had just won another one, so now I have two, and they're gold to me. And when people come over, they go, "I've never seen them yet." It was just a tops item that was released.
Yeah, and one of those things where they probably took a surplus of cards. Like you said, when they were repackaging like the KB double pack figures, or they probably did that with the cards, like, hey, what are we going to do with these? Let's throw a bunch of them in one package and get them out there,
It was smart. So those are lightsaber prototypes, and those are all from episodes 1 through 3. I'm sorry.
Prototypes, I apologize, Barbara. So prototypes, do you know like what manufacturer for what product or?
Well, for example, like there's 3 wooden ones that you see on the left, and those were made. Those were made from a studio, and they made lots and lots and lots of these wooden dowels. And these were not for the main characters, the ones that were on the left. And if they liked the design of it, they would go on to making them in resin, and then the resin would be the step to the right. But like you see Count Dooku's, and then there's Plo Koon's, and then there's other sabers. So those eventually had gotten farther along for being, really great, and then they went on from there. And there's a small lightsaber that's in the front bottom. That's actually a screen-used Youngling lightsaber. So
okay.
Yeah. So
what are these, Robin?
That's a side view. It actually turns up. That is a wall plaque from one of the films.
Okay.
So that actually is like you would put it by the door that you would talk into it like a big communicator pad. So that is, you're seeing like the side of it.
Nice.
Now looking over to what would be my right, it looks like a Luke Return of the Jedi. What's
that actually is a remote control. That is a like a VCR like remote control. You could see one box there, and I actually have the prototype for that, which is in the case there. It's in if you go to the bottom of those the resin ones, that bottom resin one. Keep going with the arrow.
This one here.
No, to the right. The other side. Okay. Yeah, keep going. The arrow. No, that's a bomb that was from a scene that was not released. Well, anyway, so that remote control. There's those 4. Keep going down.
Right. No, it's right in the bottom, Chris. The
box. That's a box right there where the arrow is.
Right there, the white resin. Yeah,
the white resin one is the prototype resin for that remote control. So the only reason why I have these remote controls, and this is from the 90s, is because it is a prototype item for making that.
So you get the process of it. You have the prototype, the piece, and then the box version. Yeah, that's great. I gotta say, I've never seen a Youngling saber. That's a really interesting piece.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there was, how many younglings were there in that scene?
Yes, maybe 6 or 7, and I don't even know. Yeah. I don't even know if every single one had a saber in their hands. Yeah, I actually, out of curiosity, I'm gonna go back and take a peek at the film.
I think there had to be at least a dozen of them. But
yeah, really,
it's still an
interesting piece.
The power of the force.
Yeah, it's something I've been wanting for a long time. I never got.
Yeah, they're hard to come by, and they're made so flimsy they crack and break so easily. So it's kind of like, they're expensive and yeah, so this is some of my carded figures that I have on the wall. This is not all I have all the Power of the Force and all the first 21 from Star Wars. These are, like, I separated these out that, like, the Empire Strikes Back are kind of to the right. A lot of the tri-logos are in the center too, and then Return of the Jedi is in the far left.
Okay.
Wow.
I love seeing all the card backs. I'm a package slut. I love packaging so much. I like these pictures. That's the only way they should be sold. That's the only way.
It's very hard to take a picture of this wall because the cabinets are in back, so it's hard for me to get away. And then there's a glare from the light, so sometimes I just have to kind of show them all like bunched up like this. But they're really, there's some really nice ones in here. They're all in really good shape. I've been very selective over the years. I really only want the ones that are in nice condition, or else I don't really want to buy it. I just want to buy it once.
Are these molds for figures here?
Those are actually molds for making ceramic items.
Okay.
That's from like RL Molds. They were ceramic items that are back from like the 70s and 80s, and I have a huge collection now of these molds that make the ceramic items.
Sweet.
Yeah, I remember they used to do, so nowadays they have it where you can go, you pay a fee, you pick an item off the shelf, and you get to paint it the ceramics. But I remember earlier, and they had like a, like for the ceramic pieces, they had like a Vader. There was like, some cutouts in his chest, and you'd have like almost like Christmas bulbs that, would be, you would turn them on. And I remember that from when I was a kid. So that's,
I have him. He's there. In one of the ceramic ones. Yeah, he's a classic.
He really is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, seeing this stuff is just really taking me back.
You can find them on eBay sometimes for like $30, $40, so they're not terribly expensive, and they usually still have the same old Christmas light bulbs that are in them.
Oh, even better, right? Even better.
Right. Yeah, that's a better picture of Vlix.
Yeah. Now he was from what I gather, he was pretty rare, right? Because he was only in, was it Brazil, Spain? What was he?
He was only released in Brazil. There was an American version of it, which is painted a little different and is slightly a different size, but the American version was never released. They're all considered prototypes for the American version. A couple of them are around and they sell every now and then. But he ended up in the dollar bin because by the time he came out was, late 80s. Nobody cared about him. So these figures all were basically junk. So
wow,
yeah,
he was garbage.
Droids and Ewoks, man, nobody cared.
Yeah,
nobody cared.
It's a shame.
And I like the vibrancy of these figures. I like these have a great Pantone and overall. It's
because they were from cartoons, Jason.
Yeah, no, that's what makes them. Yeah, that's.
They were cartoons that weren't so colorful. These were fabulous. These were like juicy flavors of candy, and they're
they're very punchy. Yeah, they got all life to them. So I gotta ask, the snow trooper over there, was that?
Oh, I'll go back.
I've seen that once. I saw that once before, the one with the red card back. Didn't that have something to do with like being attached to a magazine and
that's a special one that was only released in Germany.
Germany, yeah, I remember that vaguely. I always, for some reason, I don't know why, but something about the aesthetic of that card back always caught my eye.
Well, it's not a card back. That's like a comic.
It's like a zine, right? Like a magazine of some sort.
Like a magazine, and then the figure, and that snow trooper. He has holes that hold his skirt on that are round, and he has a different kind of gun. And so he's just a little bit different. He also has like a double scar on the back of his leg where they took out his origin. So it doesn't necessarily it doesn't say like Hong Kong. So that he's just a little different. So it's kind of cool.
It is.
What's in the mail away?
It's a new piece.
What's in the mail away?
I don't know.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
I don't know. I've got so much crap. I'd have to.
No, it's 10-pack.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so you could see more.
Uzes.
No, those are actually soaps, shampoos. Okay. That's those are like utility packs. So they're the one in the center are the Princess Leia ones that have like a shampoo and soap, and then the ones to the left have like a toothbrush, and they're like a Luke one. So there's like a Luke one, there was a Leia one, and then the shelf below it, I have a lot of my mini rigs that are all in there. Those are all sealed. I'm happy with those. And then there, if you look, you see your action display stand. There was a special offer, the box for that. The second shelf down.
Right. This one? Oh, here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Right there where the arrow is. Yep, right there. That's hard to come by. That's pretty neat because that it was the common thing that you could have mailed away for, but then at some point they actually boxed it.
So this is more of like a retail version. I was gonna say they were always considered mailaways, but this is almost this is basically a retail version.
So that's cool. And then there's a very, very rare one that is an Empire Strikes Back one that really had limited release that's out there, and it has like Greedo and like Leia.
I never saw that one.
Leia. So it has all different stickers for the figures. That's pretty cool.
That one I never saw.
Yeah, it's out there. And then the next two shelves down are a lot of the Sigmas. I put them in the front part. Those have become more popular lately.
Sweet.
And then on the bottom, you see store displays and oddball items and stuff like that.
What are these?
Those are actually from, I think, episode 1. Okay. They basically look like grenades. You open them up, and it has like some kind of like little toy in it.
No, okay.
That's junk.
Oh, look at the wind up R2.
Yeah, so that's the Takara wind up R2D2 that was Canadian. That's on a Canadian card back actually. So it's kind of
he's a tough one to come by.
Yeah, it's pretty neat to see. I love him.
What are these guys here?
Yeah, what are these guys? Why are they?
Well, those are like Polish bootlegs that are in the center. They're made of like rubber, and then the ones to the left are model Trems from Brazil. Those are they're all metal, and the company made model trains, and then they wanted to get into making Star Wars figures, so they're called model Trems, and they don't stand very well. You have to put them on stands. They really didn't have any playability for kids, but they're pretty cool.
This X-Wing with the special offer, did they come as carded figures like before, or were they in bags or boxes?
I believe that most of them were card backs that were put in. I don't know whether they were baggies. I could be wrong on that. They may have been baggies. I haven't opened that up in a long time to differentiate what is in it. I probably should, but every time I open up any of these, I rip everything. And some of these came with baggies and some of them came with card backs, but later on with Return of the Jedi, they ran out of the card backs, and sometimes they ended up inserting baggies.
Okay. So there's a lot of nice stuff in this picture here that for me, I've always wanted to yak face Anakin. I've always told people, I want to get them all, but I know I'll never have yak face or Anakin.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to come by. Like the Gamorrean guard came from my friend Ralph in Germany, and
I've never seen the Gamorrean on the part of the Force.
Rare. I don't. Yeah,
these three are pretty rare.
Yeah, my buddy Matt Krapowski sold me his. He sold me one of his, and then the Nikto I got at Celebration, and a lot of these have just been a labor of love to be able to find and piece together. But I actually owned quite a few of these back from the day when they were still in the bag, when they were bought in 1985 on clearance because nobody wanted these. So when I started setting these up, I just took them out of the bag and I started putting them in acrylic, and that's when I figured I needed to buy them all. And then I was like, well, damn it, I can't find them all. And then I found out, oh my God. And when I first had gotten the yak face, I showed my husband, and he started to laugh. He thought it was like a gag toy. I said, no, this is
awesome.
real. And the guy that was in it's named Sean Crawford, who I'm friends with him, and we converse, we talk, we chat, we've hung out together. And I'm like, no, I know the guy who was in it. He was like the puppeteer that was in it. And my husband's like, that's a fake thing. You are so full of crap. He did not believe me. And I'm like, I'm telling
awesome.
you, it's a real figure. He's like, I can't believe it. And then he would just, again, it was always a good segue to get him to like leave the room. Because he would like look at something and go, oh, and then he would just leave. So
Robin, these three here, they were released in America. Were they?
No,
I'm asking. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know where. I know that Yak Face wasn't, and I know that Anakin wasn't. I don't know whether Nikto was. I can't tell you whether Nikto or the ATA commander. I don't know.
No wonder. I don't know myself because I've never really.
The ATA driver. I don't know. I don't know whether the ATA driver. I'm not sure. I'm having a blank out because it's going on midnight here, and right now I'm not. I don't want to give any misinformation, but some of these were from Canada. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Time kind of, when you get so into it, time kind of, it
flies by.
It just sort of flies by. So yeah, we can.
We'll try.
No, we don't have to leave. No, I want to go through everything, but I'm just saying, like I'm blanking out on whether it was from Canada, whether any of them were limited release here or from Australia.
Yeah, and you don't want to skip a beat, Robin, because those, they'll.
Oh, everybody, you know what I mean? So
if purists will be like,
I get yelled at if I forget something simple. Everyone can fact check me and just correct me all the time. I'm getting to the age now. I'm 49. I'm getting to the age where I'm starting to forget everything. So
I got your fact checks right.
I'm not. I never forget a thing, right, Jason?
I forget everything. Oh, those are Hungarian. Those are Hungarian figures, which again are
those like the pastel color green
and
red. Yeah,
those are nice.
Leia, there's a C-3PO, there's Wicket. I have I only have like I think 6 of them now.
I've never seen those before.
I like the
there's always something
on the
you just
there's
just with this stuff, there's always stuff you've never seen before. I've been collecting 30 years and I've never seen those Hungarian figures ever.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah. That's my costume I wore back in October 1983. My mother stitched it up, and I was Leia that year. And I had the helmet.
So that's like your one from a kid?
That's mine. That was mine. I wore that was my Halloween costume, and it means a lot to me.
What a great piece to have on display.
I love it
piece.
Because it's vintage, and I
means
got
something.
to enjoy being Leia. Yeah,
it
was very accurate. I do have pictures of me in it, and I am screen accurate in that film. From the film.
I love it.
That's it. She got it spot on.
Nice.
So I wanted to include that because it means a lot.
Oh, that's the last one.
Okay.
Whoa.
Nice.
This is like what we're looking at. That's the real deal. The whole.
No, I shut that up because I was thinking about using it as a background, but it's.
I was gonna say that's quite the.
I had a lot of.
No, that's not hers.
There's a lot more things I could have sent pictures of, but I didn't know how many pictures you wanted me to send of areas.
No, that's
and
good.
Stuff.
That's quite a few. But we've been on for an hour and a half. Then we got plenty of pictures and lots of stuff to talk about. And
I hope I didn't ramble on and bore everybody too much.
No. We can talk about this for It's
I know I said it a few times already. Yeah, but like I said, there's vintage, and then this is again like we're looking a lot of stuff that was meant to be temporary, stuff that was meant to just be, like you said, not necessarily bought and saved, stuff that was supposed to be consumed. Just it's amazing because these are all things that we all, like you said, experienced. these were items that, weren't just purchased, but were experienced. We interacted with them, we engaged with them in a different way versus the toys. Whether you took a bubble bath or you had the gum or the cereal or the cards or the costumes for Halloween. It's just, I can even remember being in those vinyl zip-up costumes with the cheap mask, scraping your face up and you're just sweating and perspiring. But those are such great moments. That's like our childhood, and you don't get that anymore. You don't get a taste of it. You don't get that experience anymore. And this was different on a different level, and man, it was fantastic, Robin, getting a sneak peek into some of the stuff you have. Great stuff, I gotta say. I tip my hat to it.
Thank you. I'm always looking for something interesting and different, and I've always got new pieces coming in that are all kind of cool. And if anybody wants to keep track of me or any of the things that are in my collection, I've like I said, I run a page called Bespin Prime, and I'm very active on it. I actually don't promote it. I haven't tried to promote it at all. I've kept it very small, so I keep it very intimate. So everybody kind of still knows everybody that's on it. We only have, I think, 3,800 people, and I could have grown it probably to twice as much if I would have talked about it. But whenever I do podcasts or discuss it, I actually really never promote it, because the only people I want to have on it, I want people to be active on it. So I want you to share. I want you to be a part of the community. I don't want you to just be there to be a lurker. So if you want
to, this is where people can go, and if they want to find out more info or exchange and share info, gather info for type of stuff that we looked at this evening, and because it's different, and today we're being bombarded by, everybody's trying to reach the most hyper realistic look or the hyper realistic, statue or figure or whatever it may be, and we've kind of lost touch of the simplicity of kind of what you mentioned early on when I asked our first question, was just like, well, there was really no perception of, boy or girl or this or that. It was just the imagination and the pure joy and love of just being in that moment and just playing it, enjoying it, and living in it. So I think that's great, and I think keeping a group small and intimate like that sometimes it is helpful to get everybody to be proactive and exchange info with each other. So
when people come
people to ask questions, though. I want them to come on and I want them to say, what is this? I've never seen this. Can you give me some info? Can you help? I want it to be a little bit of a help page at times, and I want people to share, because you'll never know it all. I'll never know it all. Clearly, I can't even remember, where some of the Power of the Force figures were released, and I'll wake up tomorrow morning and go, oh God, I should have told them exactly. But you're not going to remember it all. You're not going to know it all. And if you can have a community of people where you can reach out to and ask them, it's nice. It feels good.
And now this is on Facebook. What was the group's name again?
Bespin Prime. That's the name of my collection.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's hard to forget. Rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it up there so people know. You can go to Facebook and visit that, get some additional info on some of the stuff we looked at and other collectors that, collect vintage, but not just vintage figures on card. So yeah, I think that's I think that's great. I don't know. Again, we're just, not that it's a bad thing, but we're just so saturated with the prop replicas, and everybody knows about the RPF and so many Facebook groups and things like that. But something so niche and so unique, because there's not only one Robin out there. There's got to be 5 or 10 or 15 more of you out there who are into this type of thing, but maybe they don't know where to go, or maybe they have some of this stuff, but they don't know much about it, or they don't know who to share it with. So
they don't need to share it. They just need to contact me, and I'll come check it out and make sure it's.
I also like to promote cosplay. I also have a lot of droid builders. I have a lot of people that don't even necessarily buy. They don't buy any toys, and they just love the films, and they're just there for the community of just hanging out and talking shop. So it doesn't always have to just be that you're a big collector. And even if you are a small collector and you're just getting going, I don't want people to ever feel intimidated that other people have so much more, that what they have doesn't matter, because we all collect the same things. We all have the same pieces in our collection, but maybe some of us have been around just a little longer and have a little head start, let's say, or have had connections and made friends and were able to get certain pieces that are hard to come by. So I never want people to ever feel like what they have is not worthy. because it's very worthy, and they're very worthy on the page.
That's important to mention.
Part of the best part is, making these connections and finding friends that have common, interests as you do, to be able, and that also helps you to acquire things that you want. Whereas, you may not know certain things are out there, but this person does. So
everybody started off with nothing. Everyone did.
Yeah.
Everyone
you have to start from somewhere. Yeah.
The Gus and the Duncans and Sansweet, everybody at one point just had like a few things. And then they suddenly went, well, what else is out there? So everybody had to learn, and we're all at a different point of our journey of learning. But all together we can, put our knowledge together and help each other, get to the point that they want to get to. So and it just feels good. I have a lot of friends that are just going, I don't have anything, Robin, but I want some of these. And I go, well, then start simple. And then as you learn and as you feel more comfortable with the items, you can ask us, you can ask everyone in the community, and, we'll help guide you if that's what you want.
Yeah. I think that's great to share, and to let people know there's no rush. There's no race to this. It's just about enjoying it. And we sometimes lose touch of that. But it's just about enjoying it. And you're right. It was great that you pointed out that, like, it doesn't matter if you have one item or two items. And if it's your favorite item and you're starting off slow, or you just don't know where to go or how to network. And you're right. Some people may have had a head start, but it's all about, like Chris mentioned, building the relationships and those rapports. And that ends up being a bigger, or the biggest contributor to any collection. Most people think, oh, well, if I only had X amount of dollars, or if I only had X, it's not about that. It's when you build those relationships, that's how you're able to find some of the more interesting and unique pieces, or figure out, where to acquire them or how to access them, and stuff like that is really, I feel like we lose sight of that and lose touch of that with all the stuff that we talk about. We don't bring that up often. So Robin, thank you for touching on that. It's just important to put out there, and we just don't do it enough.
Yeah, it really isn't, because I've had a lot of friends who had nice collections and they had to sell them for financial reasons. They needed the money, and then they had to start all over, and they felt like they were a little depressed that they have to start all over again. And I'm like, you know what? It's not even about the collection. It's about the knowledge. It's about the friendship. It's about the journey of finding these items. And it's a hunt. And it's a lot of fun when you're out on the hunt looking for something, no matter what it is. It's like, what will today bring? So
it's consuming too. It's consuming too. Like I spend way too much time hunting for things.
Time-wise, but it is very enjoyable. Part of looking for the piece is almost just as fun, if not more enjoyable, than actually acquiring the piece. Yeah. And I know that's hard to explain for some people, like for some people to understand that, but when you've been collecting long enough, there's something about tracking down that unique piece, or that one-off piece, or the piece you've seen over and over and over again, but it's just so unattainable. And there's a joy to it. And sometimes not having it, you kind of almost miss after you get the piece, like having gone through the process, and there's something, because it goes away, and obviously you can move on to the next thing. But yeah, it's such a fantastic way of discussing collecting tonight and seeing some of this stuff. So yeah, it's really been enjoyable.
It's been great, Robin.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Anytime you want to talk Star Wars, want to talk anything, I'm always game. So
we may invite you back for who knows what, group therapy.
Yeah, just to come talk shop.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm good at that. I'm a doctor. I mean, I don't do that kind of medicine, but as a physician, I get a lot of people that come in, and they're in for like maybe something simple, and they sit down, they go, oh God, I want to kill my neighbor, and oh, my kids are terrible, and oh my God, I've got diarrhea, and I'm like, tell me about it. So I hear everything. So I end up being the therapist at times too, trying to get them off the ledge. So I'm good at that.
Fantastic. Hey, out of curiosity, do you carry any of your collection over into your workspace? Any Star Wars present at the workspace?
You know what? I don't have anything there, because I have so many people that come in and out of the office, and the days that I'm not there, other doctors are there, and I have a lot of wind-up items from Solo, a lot of the little mech droids, and I have a lot of inexpensive items that if they walked, I'd be fine with that. And I know that a lot of people like go in, they go, "Oh, you Trekkies with all your little sci-fi."
I love it, Trekkies.
Oh, you have no idea. My mother has a girlfriend, and she goes, "Oh, you Trekkies, they're always," and I'm like sitting there going, can't you just like smack her at least a little? And my mother goes, "It's going to make a difference." She's never even seen Star Trek. She's like, so she's never even seen any of it. So no, the stuff in the office is kind of, if a kid walks off with it, if they walk in the office and they see it, I won't cry, but no, I keep all the good stuff here.
My son's pediatrician, that he had a whole big, huge display case in his office, in the physician's office, and it was all his old Star Wars toys, just all set up nice and, you know, with all the figures and ships and stuff. It was really cool. Every time we walked out, we're sitting there looking at, oh yeah, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. Well, you don't have that, Dad, do you? I'm like, no, I don't. So it was cool seeing that in a pediatrician's office. But
it is. It would relax kids.
Yes.
Before they
get Robin, I appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun, and we definitely want to have you back again. I wanted to ask you a question. Do you go to conventions in the area? Are there any favorite conventions that you go to for?
Well, I always try to go to Comic-Con. I'm not going to be going this year because a lot of the vendors that I know are not going to be there. And the main reason why I go is to see the people that I've known over the years. But all the vintage guys are not going to be there, so there's no toy collecting for me. And you have to wear a mask, and it's going to be limited. It's going to be very hard to get in. I'm afraid it's going to take hours to get in for some crazy reason. You have to show a Vax card, and it will really slow down. The process can even take a long time to get in, but I'm not going to go. But there's a lot of local toy shows that I do go to, and I'm always there.
All right, cool. Nice. Yeah, I find that I don't find very good deals, or like they're always extremely more expensive at shows than getting it through people that you know and off the internet. So
believe it or not, sometimes lately you can get really good deals on eBay if you follow some of these items. I'm on a lot of Facebook pages for selling, and the prices can be twice as high there as you end up buying it on eBay. So I'm back to the eBay sites more so than even other people, because people are so emotionally attached, and maybe they're trying to fund another purchase that they're trying to sell it for top dollar. Yeah. And the item that they're selling is maybe more common. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I end up going to eBay, and it's like a free for all. Whoever has the highest bid wins, and lots of times you can get something for a few $100s versus a few $1,000s. So you are back to eBay, and that's when a lot of times people, like just today, were sending me links saying, "Is this worth it?" I'm like, absolutely not. That is that no way. That it's like as much as it's worth. Right. So
Okay, so with that, we're going to end the show. Thanks again, Robin. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming, and Jason too. This was a blast.
It was a pleasure, man. I had a great evening.
We got to do more vintage on this channel, right, Jason?
You need vintage. I mean, come on. This is where it all started. Yeah, and you need more prop people to come on and talk about it, because the props are what the toys eventually were made of, and then the newer toys. So you need to get a hold of more of us, and I do know a couple of them that might be interested in chatting with you. So
we'll talk.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
We'll talk.
We'll have our people call your people, and your people call our people.
Yes.
That's how it works.
All right. Good night, guys, and we'll see you on the next.
All right. Good night. Thank you.